Daria, welcome to my channel, and today I have my 9th update for Pens That palette for you, and it's a very exciting update, so let's just jump into this video. This project was created by Amber F, by the way, and I will link her down below. And right now I'm working on 3 palettes in this project. So, the palette that I've been working on since January is my Naked palette from Urban Decay, and it's original Naked, meaning that I bought it before they relaunched it. So it was in 2018, I guess, right when Urban Decay decided to discontinue this palette. And right now you will be able to see what this palette was looking like in January when I rolled it in. So I had quite a lot of dips in this palette, but I didn't have any pens. In February I've hit 3 pens in Virgin, Bug and Smoke. And I've had quite a lot of dips as well in other shades. In March, I was able to hit 3 additional pens in Sin, Half-Baked and Dark Horse, and I've expanded all of the other pens quite a bit. In April, I had my first finish shade and it was Smoke, but also I've hit pen in Naked and Sidecar. In May, I finished Virgin and Bug, and I've hit pen in Creep, and I've expanded all of the other pens quite a bit. In June, I've managed to finish Scene and Sidecar, and also I've managed to hit pen in Toasted, and all of the other pens were expanded quite a lot. In July, I finished Naked and Toasted, and I've almost finished 2 other shades. And in August I finished Half-Baked and Dark Horse. I've hit pen in Hustle and Gunmetal and expanded a pen in Creep quite a bit. And in September, so in my last update, I've managed to expand all of the pens quite a bit, and I didn't have a lot of product left in the remaining 3 shades that I still had in my Naked palette. And now you can see what this palette is looking like today, and we have some big changes. So first of all, I've managed to finish 2 shades, Hustle and Gunmetal, and I hope that you will be able to see that I unfortunately still have a little bit of Creep left in this palette. So let me show it to you. I hope you will be able to see it that way, but I have just a tiny bit of product in this Creep shade. I think in a week this palette will be completely done. I'm very excited about it. As you can see, I've never imagined that I will be able to finish the whole palette in a year. Of course, it wasn't brand new and I used it quite a bit, but yeah, I've still made such a great progress on it. But let's talk about my uses. So I've used Hustle an additional 4 times in order to finish this shade for a total of 45 tracked uses, and I've started tracking my uses in the end of 2024, but of course this palette is much older than 2024, and I've had like an additional 5 years to work on this palette and to use these shades. I've used Creep an additional 29 uses for a total of 211 uses, which is quite insane. It's really insane. I've never used an eyeshadow that much in my life, but it's getting closer to being finished. And I've used gunmetal an additional 5 times in order to finish it for a total of 56 tracked uses, which is great. So basically I've used Hustle all over my lid, I've used gunmetal in my outer corner and also on my lower lash line, and I use Creep almost every time I do my makeup as a liner. I don't do wings usually. Well, sometimes I use it as a wing liner when I want to experiment with my eyeshadows, or maybe with my potted eyeliners, water activated eyeliners, but usually I just use Creep to line my upper lash line, and that's why it takes so many uses to finish this shade, even so it's quite powdery. But in the beginning of the year, I've also used Creep on my lower lash line and in my outer corners, but then I've decided to just use it as an eyeliner, which was quite great. But basically, well, my goal for the next update is just to finish Creep, and that's it. And then this palette will be done, which will be very, very, very exciting. But yeah, I don't have a lot to say about this palette anymore. I think once I finish it, I will do a whole separate video dedicated just to this palette, and in that video I will talk about every shade, how much uses it took to finish it, how much uses it took to hit pan on each shade, and how much I use this palette as a whole in total. And yeah, but I think I will do it in a separate video, not in my next update, because there will be quite a lot of numbers and statistics. Anyway, I'm really happy with what the palette is looking like right now, and I'm sure that I will be able to finish it by my next update. The next palette that I'm working on is Venus Success from Lime Crime in the shade Rose Gold. I've rolled it in just in my last update because I knew that I didn't have a lot of shades left in my Naked palette and in one more palette that I'm working on. But I found the picture of this palette of what it looked like in January of this year, and as you can see, it was used, it had dips in it, but it didn't have any pens. But I was using it on and off, and I've managed to create 2 pens in it and have quite a good dips in 2 other shades. So now you can see what it was looking like in my last update. I had pens in Charm and Eternal, and I've had good dips in 2 top shades, in Angelic and Divinity. And now you can see what this palette is looking like right now, and we have big changes in it too. So I've hit 2 new pens in 2 top shades, and it's Angelic and Divinity, and I've expanded 2 bottom pens quite a bit. So let's just talk about each shade and let's talk about uses. So I've used Angelic 10 times in September for a total of 10 uses in this project. I don't have right now all of tracked uses for these shadows, but I'm very happy that I've hit a pen in this shade, but this shade is the one that I'm most worried about, just because I use it in my creases, so I don't use a lot of product when I do it, to be honest. But if I must, I will use it as a blush, and I think that way I will be able to finish it by the end of the year. But we will reassess all of this in my next update, I guess. So the next shade is Divinity, and I've used it 30 times. I've also been able to hit pan in this shade, and I've expanded it quite a bit. I use it every day as my brow bone highlighter, but also some days I use it as my brow bone highlighter and also in my inner part of a lid. So some days I use it in two ways, and so basically I use a lot more products than if I used it just in one way. But I'm happy with the progress that I'm making. I'm quite happy to use this shade every time I do my makeup. It's quite a nice shade, and I think I will be able to finish it by the end of the year. The third shade is Charm, and I've used it 10 times in September. It's a great shade. I use it all over the lid, and I like it very, very much. Unfortunately, this palette is quite old also, so it's quite powdery, and these shimmer shades are quite crumbly, so it's going quite fast too, and I need to put at least 2 layers on my lid now to get a desired effect. So yes, that's why this shade also is going quite fast, but I think I will be able to finish this shade by my next update, to be honest, which will be quite insane. But moving on to our last shade, it's called Eternal, and I've used it also 10 times. I use it in my outer corners or on my lower lash line, and that's why the pan's expanded quite a bit. I'm trying to wear down also the sides of this pan, but I'm not sure that I'm quite successful in it for now, to be honest. Yes, that's the other shade that worries me quite a bit, but I have a better chance on finishing this fourth shade than this first shade. But I'm happy with the progress that I've managed to make in a month, and I will be continuing working on this palette. My goals for the next update is of course to use each shade at least 10 times. It's been my soft goal throughout this whole year to use all my focus shade at least 10 times per month, and I will try my best to finish this Charm shade by my next update, but we will see how it goes. And the third palette that I was working on is this Lin Lo Mineral Makeup Eyeshadow palette, and I found a bad screenshot of what it was looking like in April, so you can see it now on the screen, but my mom decluttered this palette to me. It was used, but it didn't have any pens in it. And so I rolled this palette into this project in July, and that's what this palette was looking like then. So I've had pens in all of 3 shades, and I've hid them in my 50 shades of black. But by my August update, I've managed to finish 2 shades from this palette, and I've had only 1 of them left. I decided to franken it with another shade, and so by September update you can now see the franken, but I've hit pen on it, I've expanded it quite a bit, and I didn't have much product left there. So now you can see what this palette is looking like right now, and as you can see, it's completely empty. I've managed to finish last franken shade in this palette, and it was just the lid setting shade for me, and I've used it an additional 23 times in order to finish it, for a total of 83 tracked uses. Well, I've used it 83 times, but my mom used it quite a lot also before she gave this palette to me. So it's our first empty palette in this project, and I'm very happy about it. So let's just go through all of these pans of eyeshadow. I think I will put a picture from my first update somewhere here so we can see what I'm talking about. So we had 2 lid setting shades in this palette, and first of them I finished in July, and it took me 47 tracked uses to finish it, and all of these shades were very powdery. The second lid setting shade I finished in September, so by this update, and as I said, it took me 83 tracked uses to do so. And the third shade that was in this palette was the shades that I used in my brows, but it created a very bad hard pen. So basically after every use I had to scrape a little bit of this product to remove this hard pen, or I had to use a tape to also remove this hard pen, but it took me 42 tracked uses in order to finish this brow shade. And also I know that I've hit pen on my brow shade after just 12 uses. I've hit the pen on the first lid setting shade in 14 uses, and on the second one also in 14 uses, which is great. And in total I've used this palette as a whole 128 times in order to finish it up completely. And basically when I'm talking about palette uses, it just means the days that I use this palette. So if I used all 3 shades in one look or one day, it means 1 use for this palette. If I used 1 shade in this palette one day, it also means just 1 use. So that's how I count my uses of palettes. But I'm very happy that this palette is done and that it will be rolling out of this project. So now we are left with 2 palettes, and this palette from Urban Decay will be done by my next update for sure. And then we will be left just with this Venus XS palette from Lime Crime. And I will do my best to also finish this palette by the end of the year, and I'm glad that I have only 4 shades to work on, but we will reassess in a month, and I think I will have a better understanding if I will be able to finish it by the end of the year, and how exactly do I need to use it in order to finish it. I suspect that I will need to use this first shade, which is Angelic, as a blush, and to use this last shade, which is Eternal, in a lot of looks in the past 2 months of the year. But for now my goal is to use each shade 10 times, and that's it. I will try once again to finish this darker shimmer, and I will try to use this lighter shimmer every time I do my makeup. But I'm really happy with this update, to be honest, and that's it. I once again will do a whole separate video on my naked palette from Urban Decay, so stay tuned, it will be coming quite soon, I suspect. But I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a like, leave a comment, subscribe, and I hope you will stay with me on my project painting journey. Thank you again so much for watching this video, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!